From Los Angeles and Nashville, get ready to go behind the scenes with Entertainment Dudes. What happens when you pair a director, a voice actor in a world, and some of the most interesting people in entertainment? You're about to find out.
Well, you look especially dashing today, Jason.
Yes, I actually bothered to get a haircut and trimmed the old beard.
That.
I even had my eyebrows trimmed. Not that anyone cares out there, but I do look, for those of you who are only listening
Finally
on the podcast,
plucked.
I do look
eyebrows
incredibly
are
good
on
today.
Fleek.
Oh, that's a horrible
that's
word,
old,
but
isn't it?
That's so
That's old.
ancient.
But, it's funny how some words like awesome stay around forever, and on Fleek was here and gone in months.
Cool has been around since the 50s, and that never went away. Like,
so what makes a word stick?
Well, I don't know. I think in the industry, there's particular words that you wonder, what the heck does this even mean? And there's one in particular for me. Director makes sense. Director of photography makes sense. But then you get this word like gaffer.
Oh, speaking of stick and gaffer.
Yeah, like, oh, hey, what is this magical black substance?
Gaff tape.
Yeah, so who better to tell us what in the world a gaffer is and does?
Gaff tape. What is
then and what gaff tape is and why? Okay, what the heck?
Whoops, sorry.
Yeah, that's what happens when you run a show with the monkey, right? You get this kind of stuff. And welcome to the show. This is David Goodman. He's an incredible gaffer, cinematographer, and I'd say director as well, because you do dabble in all of the arts, do you not?
I do.
Yes, wish to welcome you to the show. So, of course, you heard us talking about what the heck a gaffer is and does. So, for those of you who aren't Cam, what does a gaffer even do?
Well, I mean, first of all, gaff tape. One of our jobs is to make sure that it never ends up on the fucking lens. That would be the first. That would be the first problem. So gaff tape, you want to have a good handle on where and when to use that. It
doesn't work, right?
Well, I mean, it works for me because visually it's fun, but it's definitely going to leave residue on your glass.
Yeah.
Yes, you're gonna have stick. So, David, how did you get into the industry? What does a gaffer do? And where'd you get your start in this area?
I mean, where I started as a gaffer and where I started in grip and electric really is not where I started in the industry. How far back do you want to go? You want to go
back wherever the story starts. Where does it start for you?
I mean, that's probably the question I get asked the most because people hear what my first job was, and my first job was Titanic.
The very first, right off the gate.
Right off the gate, I was.
No, you started small.
Wow.
Exactly.
How did you survive the sinking? There's got to be a story there, right?
Did all your gear go down with it?
Well, I mean, I did work with James Cameron, so I was a damn good swimmer in bullshit.
I heard he's really fun to work with. He's easygoing. He's
Yeah, no, you're totally being sarcastic because nobody said that ever.
Said no one ever.
Said no one ever, yeah.
Yeah, I had some friends that worked on Avatar, and they said they contemplated suicide or going to work that day, and it was a toss-up. It was very close.
Well, I mean, he is a perfectionist.
Yep, absolutely.
He likes to yell. He likes to belittle. He likes to degrade. However, as my first job, what am I going to do? What am I going to fucking say, right? And never anything. So,
sir, I disagree with you.
I disagree. That's totally wrong. So I will say that as far as I started in visual effects as a painter coming out of art school, as a fine artist, and I was working in a art supply store, and I was running the airbrush department, and I was supplying all the airbrush equipment and paint and brushes and all that other stuff to the model shop that was over in Playa Vista. That's where they were building the sunken and the hero prop Titanic that was 1/64 scale, I think. I mean,
geez, you saw it, right? Did you paint on it? I mean, the thing was just, I saw the behind the scenes. It's massive.
Yeah, I mean, we had a huge crew. Gene Rizzardi was our crew chief. It was an amazing crew. So the way I got over there was one of the guys who was on the crew with Gene was buying airbrushes from me, but he didn't know exactly how to use them. I was also teaching classes. I was teaching school at Culver City Adult School for airbrush. So I taught this guy how to airbrush, and then I sold him a bunch of shit, which is basically what my job was. So the more I taught him, the more shit he bought. So it worked out really well for me and the store that I was managing. So
yeah, that's one of those things. If you talk about the law of alignment and attraction, he's at the
yes,
right place at the right time. And
yes,
if he had not been prepared as who he was, ready to sell, eager to jump on top of that, even though that experience was there, it wouldn't have happened for him. So it's a case of the right place at the right time, plus the right attitude, the knowledge, and the willingness to go above and beyond to serve their
yeah.
client, which is extremely important.
Definitely one of the things I always brought to my work from the very first day was a sense of quality, which is what drives me today for the content that I create today. The quality is of the utmost importance. I mean, I work on shit to pay the bills sometimes, but the quality is amazing. So, I went over. Oh, so the guy I sold the airbrush to, he says, "Hey, why don't you come over to the shop, check it out one day?" I said, "All right, come on over." And we're both smoking weed together. It was a big partying time of my life. So, we were partying together, me and this guy. He's like, "Hey, come on over and see the set." I came over, I looked at everything, I walked through everything, and he told me, Brian was his name. For the life of me, I won't remember his last name, but I mean, I owe him everything if I ever saw him again. He was a fucking phenomenal guy. I went over there. He said, "We're having this problem. We can't create this rust. We're having a hard time with this." At the time, my fine artwork, my paintings that I was working on, because I was working in an art supply store, I was also working with these paint companies like Golden Paints and Modern Masters, even makeup paints, waterproof airbrush makeup paints. So I was doing all this stuff with paint. So in my own work at home, I was creating these waterscapes that incorporated paint that I had put lead into, and then I had acted on it with acid and created actual rust in my paintings themselves.
Oh, that's cool.
Cool.
So as an
serendipitous.
artist, yes, very serendipitous. Absolutely. This is the universe. The universe does freaking work this way. My mom always said, I never believed her. And then it started happening, and it just kept happening more and more. So I went out to the car, and as a good artist, I had all my stuff in the car. My hands were full of paint all the time. I was an artist. So I came to the back of the car, I popped the trunk, I made 4 boards. I knew that if I acted on each one of them in a different way, with acid, with sunlight, with the lack of UV, I could make these 4 different colors, very distinct, from reddy brown all the way up to yellow, so that you can see value and depth within the rust itself.
Oh, cool.
I made these 4 boards. I let them dry. I brought them in. I walked them into the shop. And James Cameron and Gail Ann Hurd were walking by at the time. And I showed them to Brian, and Brian went over and said something to Cameron, or something happened. And I mean, the next thing I know, I had a fucking job.
That's amazing. So, and your paint shop was like, oh.
Well, it's funny. That's Graph Aids was the company I worked for. And Jerry, the owner, still a very close friend of mine, even after all of these years. He's got a place up in Agora now. Great place for fine art materials. Unbelievable. I mean, this is basically the Titanic paint scheme was born out of Graph Aid stock at that time in Santa Monica.
Ah, that's really cool. So,
pretty cool, yeah.
When you were on set, you were predominantly just focused on the painting, right? But when you're on set, you're learning all the time. If you're good, you're always watching someone else does. I do.
I think at the time I was getting experience that I didn't know how to ask for. So not only was I painting the sets, but I was going to stage doing what we were calling as model scenics, stage support. And what that meant is if the camera bumps into the model, you're there to fucking fix the model. Right? And worry about the camera. Make sure the camera doesn't break. It can break the model all at once, because we'll fix that. So you always have to have someone on stage with all the touch-up paint and everything. So that's what really gave me an opportunity to see what was going on with the filming. And that is where my love started. I went from a painter, and I enjoyed that thoroughly. I have great stories about what that thing smelled like. And we were putting like flaming hot Cheetos where the rusticles coming down when you see the promenade deck down the, and that really exists underwater. We found Flaming Hot Cheetos. They had the same shapes as the Rusticles, and that's what we used in the model. So those are actually Flaming Hot Cheetos. So there was this great gag, and this gag, this and one other situation on Fifth Element really sold me for what I wanted to do in the future. So we built the sea floor and everything where the sunken ship was, and we brought it into a stage that the grips had made airproof with that really heavy duvetine, the soundproof duvetine, like probably a couple layers of it. And it was a big oval. The size of the sunken Titanic was about the size of my Equinox, maybe a little bit bigger, to give you a size of scale, right?
Yeah, massive.
And we have the sea floor, which is all steel, like basically girders that the VFX shop would build all of this out of steel. It's all custom. So we get to stage, and the gag is to get that ripple effect in the water in front of the lens. If you wanted to do that practically and not digitally, because keep in mind, back then we didn't really have digital. We were the first ones to make water that was realistic. I remember that.
I remember that.
I mean, that was the predecessor to so much digital technology that's out there now. And that was all written at Digital Domain for us specifically. And then they just reused it because, camera's smart as shit. So,
yeah, because it was already done. He built the framework for it. And so.
Exactly. So the gag was, you have these 4 50-gallon drums at the corners of the oval, basically. You decide corners. They have these giant fans over them, and they're filled with mineral oil. And they work like a siphon airbrush. There's a little siphon coming out of the 40-gallon, 50-gallon drum going into this fan, and the fan is sucking it out and dispersing it in the air. And the 4 of them together create this circular motion. So now you have this wonderful effect like you're under the ocean looking at the fucking Titanic, right?
That was amazing.
Wow.
That's incredible.
The problem was, and this is where it got really interesting. This is where I really said, now this is how it's done. The problem is that the mineral oil was actually dissipating up.
And the water, because it's lighter.
And that way in the ocean at that depth, you only go down. So we had a big problem. They had to take this entire thing that's bigger than a car, bigger than an SUV, and they had to flip the entire thing upside down, and they had to take all of the cranes and dollies for the camera moves, and they had to flip everything upside down for all of it, and now they had to film everything upside down. Well, the first thing that happened when they flipped it upside down is we used wheat germ in the corners for texture. We had so much natural stuff on that was glued on with like spit and like Elmer's glue, right?
And it all started falling off.
It all started falling off.
Yeah, because it's like flipping a cake upside down and all the toppings just went off.
Correct. However, somehow it was extremely fixable, and it wasn't even an issue because we all just sort of it was the stage, by the way, was right there in Playa Vista. So we had the model shop, the paint shop, and then they created this stage within the hangar. The hangar where they built the Spruce Goose Wings is where we were.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's torn down now, but so it was actually in there. So we had the whole crew. The whole crew came in, all hands, boom, 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 touching up, fucking Krylon spray paint on everything, Ruddy Brown Krylon spray paint on everything, because everything was rotting so bad. We'd walk in the morning and it would start stinking. So we just hit it with the Krylon sprays. Everything smelled like spray paint all day.
Everyone's walking around like, hey, how you doing? Good. How are you?
Well, listen, if that was the worst thing we were doing, I'll tell you, I learned more about paint and texture and detail and what the camera sees from James Cameron than I've learned from anybody since, because he took the time to come over to me and actually show me so crisp and clear. The way he talks is so definitive. I learned more in 10 minutes with him than I've probably ever learned about painting from anybody at SCAD in
yeah, it feels like he knows, like literally knows everything there is to know about everything.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant, very difficult to work with. I got yelled at several times. He came by and grabbed a part of the model. His screen was not right, and it was a railing. He grabbed it, and it ripped the stuff all the way down the front of the like Right where it comes to the beginning.
Yeah, the
The
bow.
whole side got ripped off. We it was like 3 weeks to fix it. But he doesn't care. He doesn't care. We were on it for so long. He's just like, fix it, and he's throwing money at us. We had massage. You could book a massage any day during work and actually leave work just to go get a massage on him.
Dude, that's great.
Caring and crafty was unbelievable. None of us were hungry. In fact, I know we all gained weight all throughout these jobs with him. Any job I did at Digital Domain, they took such good care of him. Scott Ross was so they cared about us as crew, and they really took great care of us.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I think we talked about that a lot about when you're working with the crew. I think it's just the amount of care that you put into the people who are working for you really helps determine the outcome and success of the project in so many ways. So, I mean, I'm sure you've worked on projects. Yeah, you've worked on projects where you were treated like garbage, and you've worked on projects where you were treated really, really well. Which do you prefer to work on?
Well, now I produce my own projects, so I always get treated really, really well, and so do all of my crew members. I just produced a short film with some great people. I think we're going to shop it around I think we'll shop it around a little bit. We'll see what it does. It's absolutely beautiful. We had an amazing DP, and I always produce my own department, so producing is not it's not a new thing for me, but I don't often go in as a quote unquote producer. I'm really just doing the work because I'm not looking for I wasn't looking for that sort of thing, but I just did it on this, and it worked out beautifully. And when people come to you at the end of a project and say, I was reminded of why I work in this industry. Someone actually said that to me, and they thanked me for that. And I got similar responses all the way across the board. And the interesting thing is, you get to a certain point, it's like I know exactly what I did, and I know why that happened, and I literally made that happen. It wasn't by accident or anything like that. So there's a way of doing things. I didn't always work on jobs where they did it the right way, and you got to learn somewhere. And I think our industry has changed dramatically to support independent far more because our technology and our equipment, it works for us. And which is why I'm not in the union anymore. I was in the union all through the first 10 years of VFX. I was 729. So, there's a lot of different ways of doing things. Nowadays, I prefer to do things that I love, that I'm so passionate about. I walk up to my DPs. I mean, being a gaffer is being a DP's best friend, number one. You're not an assistant. You're handling a part of their job, the lighting part of their job, so that they can really focus on the camera and the lens and all the things that go into it to make it beautiful. So that I've gone from working in a shop for many years, doing just a whole slew of huge movies, and now I'm in a position where I get to use my creativity as a gaffer, as a lighting director. I'm a total lighting lunatic. I just love it. I see everything with light, and it comes from my art background, even though I did film school later. That's a different time. We can talk about that. But when I realized that the art wasn't going to carry me anymore, now I get to use my art in a way that I just feel is extremely important, and it affects people in the way that good entertainment affects me emotionally. I'm very emotional about my work. I mean, I make money. I absolutely make money. I wouldn't even leave the fucking house if I didn't make money. So don't get me wrong. I'm not doing any free work just for someone's passion project. But I am so passionate about the projects I work on. When given the opportunity, a DP and a gaffer could be the absolute strongest force on set. I mean, we run that shit. Without us, it doesn't go. And we run that shit. And when a gaffer and a DP, like the DPs I work with, when they work well together, we know what each other wants. We both have the same expectations for unbelievably high quality stuff. Even if we're shooting a Mike's Hard Lemonade commercial, it doesn't really matter what you're shooting. I want that to look as sick as possible. So when I put it on my Instagram,
you're like, it looks good.
right?
I imagine the art background was instrumental in what you're doing now, because when you were doing art and paint, I mean, you learned about additive and subtractive color. You learned
Yep.
about how light
Composition,
would
light and
affect,
shadow.
5600, 3200, how that would all affect what things look like. So
Yep.
how did you take all that knowledge and apply it to the gaffing side of things? What
Well,
helped you?
I mean, the interim is photography, definitely. You have to understand photography to understand lighting, because you have to understand lenses. You have to understand f-stops at that time. Now we're t-stops, obviously. It's a slightly different animal, but these are the basics that I had to know to take my art from painting into understanding how the equipment works to recreate a visual through a lens, which is freaking magic. I mean, it is
Painting with light.
Freaking magic, and I just love it so much. So the photography definitely led me down the road to gaffing. When I was going to UCLA, I was bartending and I was lighting for a photographer because he was no good at it, and we made a great team, and I enjoyed that for years.
He had the eye for the framing, but he wasn't good at the lighting.
He had some other things too. He was great with clients. He had some big problems on one side, but then on the other side, he was really great with the way that he would gift of gab. My grandmother gave me the gift of gab. He used that really well to his advantage. He was a nice
I think you're going to find that out on a lot of sets or whatever you're working, especially in film or anything in life. Sometimes it's good to identify your weaknesses early, so then you can find people who can work with you. A, you can improve on your weaknesses, and B, you find people who complement your weaknesses so that you can partner together to create something, a project that the client's really, really happy with. And they don't know that you're deficient in that area. Your gaffer will.
you hire the right people. I mean, as a producer, hiring the right people is the name of the game. You don't do that, you don't have shit. So it's definitely about the right people. It's definitely about the crew. Working as a gaffer has been instrumental. I get very close to the talent. I'm oftentimes taking readings in front of their faces. I'm moving shit around their heads, and I talk to them and I put them at ease because I want to do things safely. I have to move them around and shit. So,
are you the gaffer that gets close to their face and looks at all the lighting?
Oh, fuck yeah, I am. Whatever I have to do to see my lighting, that's what I do. But working with people comes into play a lot in a lot of different, exactly, just like that, Jason. I think it's putting my fist in front of their face to see my fucking shadow. Oh yeah, there's that fucking light right there in their face. Yeah, just there we go. Hey, sorry,
and then this
put my
one
shit in your face there.
Where's that coming from? Oh, there it is.
Yeah, just like that. So being a gaffer is so many more things than lighting. The lighting thing is a bit. Oh, hello.
You're good, Cam. Hey, if you ever need a gaffer, Dave, Cam's amazing.
Yeah. Okay. We can talk because there's plenty of work out there for all of us. There's a lot of independent work right now. I don't play the union game anymore. They have their niche. I've got the one that I've carved out for myself. I've been growing exponentially every year, even in spite of COVID. There was a year that sucked ass really bad, and then I continued my progress from 2019, which is where I feel I really started hitting a good stride. And
I remember that. I remember you were doing some lighting in Texas for a YouTube channel. I remember you were gone for a little while doing a whole studio system. And then, so you were not only Gaffer, just so we don't know, Gaffer's the person who's responsible for setting up all the lights and working with your electrical team to get all the lights run and getting all the grip stuff set so that the shot looks good. And that way, as David already said, the DP can really focus on what's on the camera. And what he's getting. And tell me how the communication goes between you and the DP. What's that look like? When do you start in that process? When do you come onto the project? Let's say you're doing a film. When do you come onto the project? And what's that communication sound like in the beginning and then during? What's that look like?
So it takes a couple of different iterations. It really just depends on the relationship with the DP. There are DPs that tell me exactly what they want. They tell me what type of light they want. They tell me exactly where they want. They may just be running into by the way, and I started as a key grip. So going to Gaffer, I went through a key grip first. I went through grip department. That's also very, very important, especially now because a lot of us swing grip and electric. I oftentimes swing Gaffer key grip because I have a lot of skill with rigging and this sort of thing. So
yeah, what's the difference between grip and electric?
So we can get into. So I'll finish this first thing first.
Yep.
So that's one type of DP, which I'm very happy to work with. They tend to be very talented. They know exactly what they want. They will noodle that shit to the very second they press the button. They're annoying as fuck, but they're highly talented, highly motivated, and I fucking love working with them. Right?
The AD hates them though.
I want every light. I want every light with bastard amber.
The bastard amber. Everybody
every light, bastard amber.
No, the AD is responsible for talent. They're not responsible for lighting, so the AD can shut the fuck up. Their job is so important that they should not have time to worry about the gaffer. The gaffer should just be doing such a great job that they're making the AD's job even easier, which is what I do. My ADs love me all the time, and I love them. Absolutely. They stay in their lane. I do my job. So the other type of DP that I work with is much more open to collaboration is the bottom line. They prefer that I know what they want in every situation. Or if I don't know what they want, then I'm making absolutely my decisions on what we're going to be doing here because I definitely know best. There's no question. I work with DPs that know little to no lighting compared to me, and they will bring me on and just be like, here's what I need. I need this soft thing here. I need this thing here. I need this here. And then I will often say, well, here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to give you this type of key here. I'm going to give you this type of fill, chin bounce. I'm going to give you an edge light from here. I'm going to light up the background this way. And I'll go over the whole thing with them. Not so much for approval, but just so that we're all on the same page and they know, oh, this guy's working towards something. And, communication is the most important thing. So it's an interesting question you have, Jason. The communication is the bottom line, most important thing you can possibly do. When that stops, everything else falls apart. So my communication with my DP is I'm there. I'm there the whole time. I mean, I'm talking to them. I'm even telling them, I'm even getting in there on shots. I'm saying, they could be rolling. And I'm like, your fucking T-stop is wrong, dude. Is that how you want it? Yeah, that's how you want it? Okay, you make that decision. But I'm still going to come in and say, hey, I don't think that's right, or I don't think you wanted it like that, because that DP is also relying on me as a second set of eyes to look at that monitor. We're a team. We're a big old fucking team, and we are super tight. I mean, when we all grip electric are together on walkie and camera, usually on 6, and my DPs are constantly going back and forth because we're constantly on the move for them. We're there for those cameras to get those best shots. And as grip and electric, I see it as a single department, even though it's traditionally been separated. Right. I think a lot of that has to do with labor and things like this. But to me, the camera, grip, and electric department are really all one in the same entity because we're all working. I'm mounting cameras. I'm bringing sticks. I'm bringing dollies. I'm bringing cranes. I'm bringing whatever we need to mount those cameras. So we're technically part of that camera department. Certainly on an independent film, we jump in. I have stuff in my van that supports just camera department. Rolling stands that I would never use for lights. They always use them. I bring those for them every time.
Yeah, even like the courtesies. I know you guys for the courtesy over the monitors and all the stands that supports the camera.
Yeah, so that's all camera support. And so the answer to the question of the difference between grip and electric department is essentially grip department is a support department. And I don't mean supporting another department. I mean their equipment supports things like supports a light or supports a camera. Their job is support. Sometimes that's a hanging support. Sometimes that's a stand support. Sometimes that's a goal post support. Whatever the support is.
Sometimes that's underwear.
I'm sure there's some grips that would not like that association, but okay, let's just say support is important.
Yeah,
I've got a good electric story. Back in Nashville, I used to work in picture cars as well. And we were working on a Spike Lee film with, I'm trying to remember what it was called. It was Randy Quaid was in it. He was playing a Tennessee State Trooper.
He was one of my customers at the Gaff Age in Santa Monica. Randy Quaid was one of my favorite customers. I absolutely adore Randy Quaid. If he ever sees this, he'll remember he used to shop for art supplies in Santa Monica.
That's hilarious. So he was the state trooper, and we had our state trooper car in there, and a guy in the electric department decides to cut off the 12-volt connection on the light bar and wire into an Edison connector, and he plugs it into the outlet box, and our whole light bar just explodes.
I mean, it's set up for DC, isn't it?
It's set up for DC.
Oh my gosh.
Powered off the car, but he's like, well, we can't keep doing it off the battery, and I wasn't there at the time, and come back to this exploded light bar.
Thanks for joining us for part 1 of David Goodman's What Does It Take to Be a Gaffer here on Entertainment Dudes. If it's your first time watching, please like and subscribe and follow us on YouTube. Smash that notification bell just so you can get updates about when we go live with our next episode. Also, this is our 50th episode. If you haven't caught any of the other Entertainment Dudes, we've got fantastic interviews with directors, writers, voiceover, actors. You're missing out on a lot of really good content you can go back and check out. Also, stay tuned next week as we pick up on part 2 with David Goodman of What Does It Take to Be a Good Gaffer here on Entertainment Dudes. Thanks for joining.
Entertainment Dudes.